Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, Claremont Graduate University is hosting the first in a four-part series for our teacher education program called Teaching in a Pandemic. So what we are going to invite you all to do with us today is to put in the chat box any questions that you might have throughout today's interview. If you would please keep your camera and mic off to reduce any possible network issues. It tends to go a little bit better if we have less cameras on. I invite you to submit any questions that you have throughout the interview into the chat box, and we're going to save a few minutes at the end of the hour to go through those participant questions and answer any live questions that you might also have. So we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Heidi Kellum. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions for the Teacher Education Program at Claremont Graduate University. And today I am joined by Nioami Nemo. She is currently an induction student here at CGU and also a former student in our Teacher Education Program. So Nioami, welcome.
Yes, hello everyone. Hello. Yes, my name is Nioami Nemo. I'm currently in my second year of the induction program at Claremont Graduate University. Just like Heidi had said, I formerly was also in their teacher ed program. Definitely went through the process, earned my preliminary credential in mathematics and the master's in education by the end of their program. And so I'll start off with just talking a little bit about myself and give you a little bit of my background. This is my fourth year. I'm entering my fourth year in education. I start off, everyone, as a long-term substitute in Los Angeles. And you know, a teacher.
Uh-oh, it looks,
last year.
I'm not sure if other participants are seeing what I'm seeing, but it looks like you froze and I'm not able to hear you anymore.
Yeah, we can't.
You can't hear her either. Thank you for clarifying. Correct. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if we can get her back in here. All right, so it looks like she left the meeting and will be coming back in. Meanwhile, is everybody able to hear me at this point? Can I get a thumbs up if you're able to hear me? Awesome, thank you. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Nioami to come back into the meeting, I'll talk briefly about why we're putting this series on. Oh, good, it looks like she's coming back in. But I wanted to introduce you all to this series based on several questions that I was receiving from folks who are looking to enter the teaching profession, but were really not sure that they wanted to enter the teaching profession given that it's changed so much, right? So this is definitely an unprecedented time. And so we thought, well, what better to assess how things are now in this new space than to talk to those who are going through it in real time. So Nioami, I'm so glad you're back.
Yes, definitely some things that can happen during virtualized session with internet. So yes, right? I'm glad to be back. Okay, so I guess I'll just start and just kind of quickly finish. But I was just finishing everyone that, yes, I'm entering my fourth year of teaching, transition from the teacher ed program to their induction program. This would be my second year in their induction program. Currently, I'm an 8th grade math teacher in San Bernardino County. And yeah, so I'll just end right there.
Perfect, thank you so much. So when you had to step out of the meeting, actually, I took that moment to explain to folks the reason why we put on this series was to learn from teachers who are going through this right now, what it's been like to transition as a teacher. So let's go ahead and start there. Think back to when you had to make the transition, probably in March. What was that like for you? What kind of things went through your head?
Yeah, definitely. Transitioning during March, definitely as a third year teacher, I'm so used to working with my kids in the classroom, being able to see any misconceptions with the math, and also being able to see how are they feeling social emotional, because that's super important. Also continuing to build those student teacher relationships. And so when we had to transition to remote learning, I was just feeling a sense of I was going to miss the classroom for sure. And I know that my students were going to miss it as well, because for some that could be their actual second home. And so, transitioning though quickly, you had to quickly research, quickly learn new strategies that will apply online, learn new softwares, and just learn how am I going to reach my students for this, last part of the second semester. So definitely for me, it was a tough transition because again, I'm missing the building those student teacher relationships, also being able to capture the data in the classroom, and then again, having to just research new ideas and new ways to approach the kids, and make sure make sure that they're surviving to the end of the school year, because a lot of them, that transition for a lot of the kids, some of them didn't take it as well, and then some did. So definitely trying to meet all my students' needs. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. There are two things that you said there that I'd like to pick up on. First, you said doing some research to figure out what you're going to need to do. So how did you approach that? Did you come up with a plan? Did you have to do a lot of trial and error? What was that like?
Yeah, definitely. So during that time, when they closed the schools, there was a lot of free like webinars through NCTM. Since I'm a math teacher, so through NCTM, but also like Khan Academy. And so at the time, my administrators would send us links like, hey, there's a webinar this day, there's a webinar that day. And so what I would do is I would take the time to attend to those webinars virtually, and so I can just learn those new strategies. Also, something that I did was I would just research different free online tools that I can use at the moment. So I looked into like Edpuzzle and Nearpod, and then also how could I incorporate Google Slides a little bit more, or Google Docs. So definitely just already utilizing resources that are free already. And so I definitely, for me, the research process just definitely, I felt helped me grow as an educator, because technology integration is super important. Well, at the time, I realized it's super important to make sure you have that in the classroom, because some of those tools that I used online could have also been used in the classroom as well. So definitely was a learning point for me in my profession. So. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. The other thing that you had said before that I wanted to pick up on was the reaction that you were getting from some of the students who may have had the classroom be their second home, as you put it, which breaks my heart to hear you say it like that. Like I imagine you got some different reactions. Do you mind sharing with us what some of those were?
Yeah, definitely. So, for some students, the grab and go meals was super important. For some, coming to school was their meal. The breakfast was the lunch that the school provided was their meal. And so, fortunately, and I'm happy that the schools were able to provide those meals and still provide that distribution, because some of the students did look forward, and at the time that could have been their only place where they received, the food and nutrition. Also for some, schools where that was that place where they saw some positivity. and also just connecting with their friends, talking to their teachers, and just, the culture of a school, and just also just teachers were just everyone, administrators, from the cafeteria workers, just everyone, we all create that environment and we all create a community. And when the kids come to school, they're looking for that. They're looking for the teachers to say, hey, good morning, how's your day? They're looking for us to talk to them and see how they're going, because sometimes they need to talk to someone. And school, provided that platform, school provided that opportunity. And that's why I said it's their second home, because school, it's a very, and I think students now realize that now, school was a very big part of their lives. At the time, sometimes kids don't realize it, but no, and now they're realizing, school was a very big part of their lives. And also it was a routine. Students need routines, and some of them like routines because it keeps them, on track. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My 11-year-old daughter was like, oh no, I don't want to go to school almost like every day. She'd be fine. But now she's like, oh, I can't wait till I can go back to school. I think you're right. They don't realize how big of a role it plays in their lives. So you mentioned the system, right? Like the way everybody works together to create that environment for the children. So now that things are going virtually, how is the environment working for you? And by this, I mean like your school administration. Are they being supportive? Were they? How do you feel like that's gone so far?
Definitely. Definitely. So my administrators are extremely supportive. They are always checking in with the teachers, and they're checking in with just everyone to see how we're doing, and also just how can we support our students, support our scholars. It is, at this time, our administrators, they definitely emphasize the importance of contacting home and building those relationships with the families, because at the end of the day, even in person, but even in this virtual environment, building those partnerships is really important. It's really important to get to understand where our parents are coming from, what they're dealing with, and also dealing with, so that we know how to approach our students with just academic and also any social emotional needs. So our administrators are very supportive with that piece, and just helping us with creating those strategies to call home. In addition, at my school, we have teams. And so with the teams, you're able to, communicate with colleagues, because we all share similar students. We all have the same students. And so with that, with the teams, you're able to see, are there any patterns with, homework submission, absences, right? Or also just participation in the classroom. So that's super helpful as well. So an administrative team that is super supportive of the teachers, collaborating, working together, and also them being there just to talk to, if you ever have a question that needs to be answered, because sometimes there can be a situation and you don't know how to approach it or what to do. And my administrators, they're there, and I can call them and say, I need support, and they're there. So for me, I've been having a positive experience with my administrative support, and also with my colleagues' support as well.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's actually, your response is a perfect segue into the next question that I had for you, which is about building that relationship with parents. You've had to do that in what we might have previously called a normal environment, right? And now we're in this virtual space. So what has that been like?
Yeah, definitely. So calling home, I definitely is important, because you're able to just learn more about the needs of your students, and also understand kind of their routines, and just kind of like when like their routines and just like when they're available for support, because sometimes every situation is different. You may call home and the parent works from home. That could be one. You may call home, they don't answer, but then you learn that that parent works right from the morning till night, and so then that means their child is there with a family member, and so just learning about kind of the environment our students are in is helpful, again, because then you can look at your data and see, okay, why are they not turning in, or what's going on with their absences. So definitely just calling home, just helps the teacher just really understand what's going on. And then building those partnerships, because every parent wants a teacher definitely to be there to support their child, and how are we going to support them, and they want to know, how are we going to support them during this time. And when you think about the different ways students learn as well, some need that support where in person was the better option, but of course with online, talking to the parents and figuring out, okay, when can we establish when can we establish like group tutoring and so forth. And so, yeah, so again, just calling home has just been definitely helps me with understanding where my students are coming from, and then also getting to know the parents and building relationships, because this is kind of like our main, that's the main way in order to build those relationships with their parents and those partnerships.
So you actually pick up the phone and dial up mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever's there to support the children.
Yes, Google, I use Google Voice. That's something you can use. And so I do. I call home. Email is also another way you can communicate, but calling, I love to call. So I've always been the type of teacher to call and to talk to them so they can hear my voice. And definitely in this stage, if they, they'll see us on the screen and stuff, but I think just calling them, they can hear our voices as well, is very helpful. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it sounds like something that you were doing before the pandemic anyway, that this is how you've established relationships with parents. That's wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all right, I'm gonna shift directions just a little bit here. And with everything being so different, has there been anything about this transition to teaching online that you have really enjoyed, or anything that has struck you or your students as a fun component that maybe we didn't have before?
Okay, yeah, I would say during this time, my student, so because we're virtual and we have to find different ways for to create a social presence. So I'm starting a blog and trying to create like a math blog, and just trying to gain different math ideas from my kids was something new, because I didn't do that in person. You can ask them in person, okay, so what do you think about this? But online I had to creating a blog. And so just to see kind of the math ideas and build a more online math community. That's something, my students are excited about. And also, if we look at, this generation, a lot of the students are into, social media. And so something that they enjoyed was Flipgrid. Usually, I use those for check-ins. So like just morning check-ins, like how do you, how's your day going? How do you feel? Just, just to see where they're at. And so just getting to know them. So that is something new that we used in class a little bit. But yeah, I would say like definitely there's a mixture. Some are excited, and then, it's a mixture. Some are excited and about distance learning, some are, and then some definitely are still in that space of, they miss that in-person interaction, they miss school, so.
Yeah, of course. You can't ever quite replace the person-to-person interaction. Mm-hmm. We had talked before about how you went through the teacher education program here to get your credential, and now you are clearing your credential in the induction program. Was there anything in particular that stood out to you about your preparation through the teacher ed program that you've relied on during this transition to online? Anything particularly helpful?
Yes. So during the teacher education program, all of their classes, I really enjoyed all of them because they all provided instructional strategies and ideas that, not you can use in person, but also online, differentiation and how we're supporting our diverse learning needs. So students that need support, who may have auditory, you need support with visuals, auditory needs, and so forth. And so I would say just all the handouts I received and all of the instructors that I've met and their experiences that they shared with us were just super important because from that I was able to, for me, what I did was I kind of gathered everything together and put it all in one document on Microsoft Word document. So it was kind of like my go-to sheet whenever I needed support. And so when we transitioned to this virtual space, I was able to still look back at some of those instructional strategies and ideas of how to support my students online. But yeah, so yeah, definitely enjoyed it. And since our program, the small class sizes was extremely helpful as well. So always be able to ask questions and talk to the professor, instructor, and everything. So super helpful.
Okay. You mentioned instructional strategies, and I wanted to ask you about that in relation to your comment earlier about how school creates a structure, creates routine for the kids. So how have you been able to create routines and structures in this virtual space? Like what kind of strategies have you used to do that?
Yeah, definitely. So from the start, building relationships, so building those student-teacher relationships is super important. So how I, started my virtual space was creating our class a shared norms for the live sessions. It's important that our students are, collaborating with us when creating those live session norms, just like in the classroom, because if they're part of the process, if they're part of that creative process, then they're more likely to follow those live session norms because as a teacher in terms of like the accountability piece, reminding them that, hey, we worked on these together, we created these together, right? And so that was super important. Another something else that's important was creating that sense of belonging. And so a routine that I have is every time my students log in, I always greet them by name, as if you were in person. So I still greet them by name, super important. And then they'll say, good morning, Ms. Nemo, good morning. So just, starting off the class with that same routine is super important. And then from there, we transition to learning intentions, success criteria, talking about agendas, what we're going to do today, and then modeling. So something that's really important is that modeling piece, because we are online modeling. We'll support them with completing the task that's in the class, and then also when you're in the class, making the assignments more, I would say, more inquiry based and more about asking questions. So, because they're already looking at a screen, right? So they're in multiple classes already looking at a screen. So by using some of those strategies where they're starting to ask questions or they're researching about something using Google, just anything like that. You want to try to create those environments. You want to try to create that environment where they're always doing something as well. And then how I always end my classes is I always end with like an error analysis, a discussion about the math topic, a discussion, or just like a Google form exit ticket. So I end those sessions in that manner. But yeah, so just having a routine, because since I teach 8th grade, they're definitely still at that stage where routine and just knowing what to expect is important. So it definitely supports them, especially in a time where things are always changing, right?
Yeah.
Things are always changing, and so definitely providing students with stability in your class is really important. And
I gotta say, Naomi, I'm 35 and I still want structure and want to know what to expect in my day. Like it's so important. But you're right, they're at a critical age, and so much right now is still unknown. And I wanted to follow up on the modeling piece of what you were saying just now. How do you model taking care of yourself during this time? That, we hear that so much, that it's so important to take care of ourselves. So how are you taking care of yourself, and how are you able to model that for your students?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, self-care is extremely important, right? As a teacher, we have to be well in order for us to lesson plan, in order for us to think of great ideas, to collaborate with our content teams. For us to even do that, we have to be okay, right? We have to be okay. So something that I do is I make sure that I go to sleep at a regular time. So I make sure I go to sleep at a regular time. Also, I make sure I exercise every day. So I definitely leave time to exercise. And then also I provide, when it's lunchtime, I make sure it's lunchtime. So after, the class, when it's lunchtime, okay, I'm like, Naomi, this is your break. This is your lunch. Do not look at a computer screen. This is your lunch. And so setting those boundaries is really important, because I remember the beginning, well, when the schools first closed in March, I was kind of in that stage like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. And I did not give myself a break, which was not a good idea. And definitely learned from then. And so now I definitely definitely learned what I needed, right? So what I needed was the sleep routine, a nice sleep routine, the exercising every day, and just making sure my lunch is a true break. It's a true break. I'm not grading. I'm not looking. It's going to be a true break. And, by doing all those things, I'm coming to my live sessions with energy, because you have to have energy, because my kids may not have, let's say it's a mixture, right? So in terms of the energy levels, and so coming in with the energy can definitely, and show them your enthusiasm is important. And for me to even do all that, I got to take care of myself and make sure I have the energy to do so. But yeah, so that's definitely some of the things that I do.
That is so wonderful. I'm so glad to hear you explain like how you avoid, just working all the time, which I've heard from other people too, is just like this thing that we do now that we're working from home. We're just like working all the time. That's so healthy. I love that. Breaks are breaks. The next question I have for you is a little more focused on maybe a few years back, when you were first deciding to go into the teaching profession. What kind of motivated you in the first place? And then the follow-up to that is, has this changed any of your motivation?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, when I first wanted to join the education field, I definitely had that mindset. I wanted to support students with their academic growth. And as time moved on, and especially in mathematics, and so as time moved on, I started to realize that when you're a teacher, not only are you supporting them with their academics, but also supporting them with sometimes some of their social emotional growth as well. And so because, they're learning and they're growing as well, academically and social emotionally. So supporting them, and so through mathematics, just being able to support them with that area as well. And then once the pandemic came, my passion didn't change. Actually, my passion didn't change. So I would say the benefit of Claremont's induction program was their inquiry process. And so just the structure of the program, it encourages the participating teacher to really look at your profession and where do you see yourself growing, right? So I would say having just, that support from them and that mindset of already, I want to continue to grow and I want to continue to be the best teacher I can be. And so my mindset never changed. I was still in that state of mind. I was like, okay, well, I know we changed. So, okay, so how am I going to support my kids with learning this? Okay, how am I going to check in with my students to see how are they feeling okay? So I continued to still, I still continue to research, and that's what I continue to research, and I have to find ways. I said, even though we're in this virtual space, I'm still gonna try and find ways to reach my students. I have to, because that's why I chose to be a teacher. I chose to be a teacher to support students and support them with their growth, academically or social emotionally, but just supporting them in general. So yeah, no, it did not hurt my passion. I'm still a teacher. I'm still ready to learn new strategies and learn, okay, platform change, environment change. Okay, so how are we gonna approach this? Yeah.
I could definitely hear the conviction in your voice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned your own growth as well, and the induction program. So you are in year 2 of the induction program, right? So you actually had to transition during the induction program. So tell us how this has been going for you, and any more that you'd like to say other than what you've already said about it contributing to your growth during this time?
Yeah, definitely. The support of my induction support provider just really supportive, really helpful, and just overall is just there to answer any questions that I need. And so, having that support from my induction support provider, and just also in general, the program in general is kind of also what helped keep my motivation going, because it's important to talk to other people who are also in this educational field and also see that change, and for them to definitely provide that encouragement and just remind me of my passion as well, and not telling me to give up was just really important. And so, the induction program here at Claremont Graduate University, it's very individualized, because you're provided with an induction support provider. And so, they're with you all year. And so you can talk to them. They know, they know kind of what you've been through, and they know, and so they can provide, that individualized support, and so I just want to say that with the induction program, very big part of that process. And I'm just really, I'm grateful to be in the program. And at this time when, I know it's changed with the pandemic, but I'm grateful to have a supportive team there. Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, when you started the induction program, there's no way that any of us could have known that we were going to go through a pandemic and that support would be all the more important, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of wondering, back when you made the decision to join induction, was there anything in particular about going with the 2-year path that appealed to you?
Yeah, definitely. Our induction program offers the early completer option to earn the clear credential, and then I decided to choose the 2-year track. And the 2-year program, I really felt that it helps me to embrace the inquiry process. And so each semester in the induction program, I get to choose professional growth goals based off of the California standards for the teaching profession. And so the CSCPs. And so from there, since I only had to choose 2 growth goals per semester, I was really able to embrace, the research process, and also just embrace where do I see myself by the end of the semester and also by the end of the school year. Definitely, definitely being able to choose goals that I feel that I want to reach was super important, because it definitely makes me feel that uh, that I'm definitely working towards improving and growing as an educator. Yeah. So the 2-year, so for the 2-year program, I definitely enjoyed that. And so that's really why I chose the 2-year program, because I can definitely embrace each part of the process.
Makes sense. Well, Naomi, thank you so very much for the time that you've spent with us today and all of the insights that you've shared with me and with our guests. We have a few minutes before I open it up to any audience questions. So I'd like to invite you just to wrap up our session with anything that I didn't ask that you think it would be really great to communicate with aspiring teachers who are really looking to you as an expert in going through this right now. Anything you'd like to share or advice you'd like to give?
Yeah, I'm definitely something I like to share is just definitely think about your core values of why you want to become a teacher. Um, you know, looking at your core values and understanding your why is going to definitely push you through during this time. Because I know that the virtual environment, it doesn't, yeah, it's definitely different, but I feel that definitely going back to those core values of why you want to be a teacher will definitely keep you motivated, and definitely continue to encourage you to pursue the teaching profession, because at the end of the day, we need teachers. We need teachers, and we need teachers with the passion. And so all I would say is even during this time and when environments change, I say continue to think of those core values, because at the end of the day, our students, they look up to us when they see us, whether it's the live session or if it was in person. When they come into our classroom, they're looking, or live sessions, right? So they're looking up to us, and to provide them with that support. Yeah, so definitely something I want to share. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any questions that we might have from those in the audience. We have our recording going on right now, so if you are comfortable, feel free to turn on your camera and unmute yourself and share out. Or if you are more comfortable, feel free to type your question in the chat box. Either way is fine with us, whatever you're comfortable with. But it is up to you now. So anybody with a question can either use the raise hand feature, or if you'd like to go ahead and type it in the chat box. Okay, it looks like we have one here from Addie. Addie asks, are you from the San Bernardino area, or did you relocate to go to CGU and teach in that area?
Okay, yeah, so I'll let you know. So I started off teaching in Los Angeles. So I started off as a long-term substitute. And then I was teaching in Los Angeles for 2 years. And then I transitioned to the San Bernardino area this year. So I guess that's interesting. I was, going through interviews during this time as well. So something I'll share with all of you. Yeah, that was definitely a change. But Yeah, and all right, so, okay. Yeah, so that's to give you my background. So when I was in Los Angeles, I was still enrolled in Claremont Graduate University. So yes, I would commute from Los Angeles and attend my evening classes at the time. And then also at the time we had some Saturday sessions, but yeah. So now I still live. So now I live out here in San Bernardino County. Yeah, thank you, Addie. And also I want to say thank you, Irene and Derek, for the comments as well. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions from the audience for Naomi? All right, well, I guess we can go ahead and wrap this one up then. I am so grateful to you for your time, Naomi, and to our guests for being with us today. This is definitely a special time, and this is an opportunity to capture these experiences as they are happening. So if you have questions that come to mind later on, feel free to send those to me. Everybody here should have my contact information, and I'm happy to forward those on to Naomi if those come through email later. So with that, we'll go ahead and end the meeting. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your evening. Naomi, thank you so very much.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you. And thank you, everyone.